Will Boise State's rushing attack be able to overcome App State's top 10 ranked rushing defense in the country? It's a crossover edition of Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. A little bit in advance. This game is not until next weekend, but this is when the schedule is lined up. Spencer McLaughlin will join us from Locked On College Football. We will preview App State and Boise State. Will App State be able to bounce back? And what happened at Boise State to begin the season? This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right, let's just get right into it. We start asking. I asked Spencer McLaughlin because they started out really poorly, caught everybody by surprise. What the heck happened to Boise State against South Florida? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Special crossover edition with our guy Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football. Really appreciate your time, Spencer. We're going to talk a little App State, a little Boise State. And I got to be the umpteenth person to ask you this. What happened to Boise State to open up the season?
I guess Ashton Jeanty was as good as some of us said he was, perhaps,
Yeah.
Possibly. The offensive line is not identical to last year, but it should be much better than this. They made a change in offensive coordinator because Dirk Cutter moved on, and maybe that's having more of an impact. You know, the South Florida game was pretty jarring. There was definitely some context added when you watched them go beat Florida in the swamp.
Sure.
That does not excuse what happened in week one. That
losing is one thing. They got throttled.
Yeah, they got smacked. Absolutely. And I know you're on the road. It's a long trip. There is no excuse for that. You are Boise State, for goodness sake. So I think certainly they know that internally, externally. That's very obvious. I'm not breaking any news there. The answer to what happened in that game is Boise wasn't ready to play. They look like a team that was struggling with a long road trip that was actually got going in the game with a 7-0 lead, which kind of makes it worse.
Right.
They allowed 34 unanswered points in the football game. Like it all went wrong. And so the thing that really happened in that South Florida game, David, is that they struggled consistently running the ball and they turned it over. And so when they did that, they got behind. And Maddox Madsen is perfectly capable in the role that he is designed to fill as Boise's quarterback. He is not made to do anything else. And that role is to be a game manager, which has a negative connotation. It does not mean he's a bad quarterback. It does mean that if he is dropping back to throw the ball more than 20, maybe 25 times in a game, but ideally for Boise, they are throwing it no more than 22 or less. When that is called upon, even though you've got some weapons at receiver I like, Chris Marshall was a former major high school talent that is a legit big body receiver on the outside. That's just not what they're designed to do. It's not in their DNA. It's not in Maddox Madsen's DNA. He doesn't have a very strong arm. That's what happened. The turnovers spiraled. They couldn't run the ball, and they got behind, and then they just kept throwing the ball because they had to. They had to, and that's just not what they're designed to do. So for any team that goes up against him, that's the formula. You take away the run game, you pretty much have a 90+% chance of winning.
I do want to go back to you say they scored the first points against South Florida. Yeah. Against Auburn was not the case because last week was the first time they scored on their first drive. It seems to me everybody's scoring on their first drive. Alabama scored on their first drive, and they lost. It feels like everyone's doing very vanilla stuff. And then right after the first 10, 15 plays, the defense is making the adjustment, and the offense doesn't make the adjustment to the defense.
Yeah, and
I think the country.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing in college football, in the NFL as well. You know, as we're recording this, Monday Night Football is going on, Buccaneers and the Texans, and in the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a shootout.
7-7, right?
Yeah, and it was 10-7. Then all of a sudden it was 14-10 early second quarter. That's still the score as we're recording. It's late in the third quarter. And so what's happening there is offensive coordinators come out with a game plan and what they call a script. And when they're on script, generally that game plan is specifically designed to counter what the other defense likes to do. Because defense is reactionary, offense is game planning. And so when the offensive coordinator comes out on script and goes right down the field, well, then the defense coordinator watches the film back, makes the adjustments, and now the offensive coordinator has to have other ways to attack those adjustments, and the chess match begins. But typically, early in a game, the offense has that advantage because maybe, you come out as an OC and you're throwing a formation or incorporating a player who the defensive coordinator is not prepared for because, well, you didn't show that. Perfect example. In the Rose Bowl, Oregon-Ohio State in the playoff quarterfinal, a game that I try to forget and yet creeps into my mind at least once a week as an Oregon guy. Very first play of the game, Ohio State goes pump screen, throw to the tight end, who I'm pretty sure had less than 10 receptions all year. Like, he was a blocking tight end. He is in no way on Oregon's radar as they're giving this guy the ball. He's just out there to block. They're just trying to get a nice, easy, complete. Nope. Fake it. He's wide open. 30-yard play, and they're off to the races, right? And then they got their stars involved later in the game as well. So I think that was such an encouraging start. Boise fans probably felt for a quarter or so, here we go. Right back up. No Ashton Jeanty, no problem. We're good. And then they weren't. And they needed that game against Eastern Washington, not just the opponent, but the outcome. They needed to go out and clobber somebody. They needed to just go out and feel good. They got that. But is that really indicative that, it's all good in Broncos country? I don't think so. They still have a lot of things to clean up. I think they have to figure out how to run the ball better and more consistently. And I don't think that has to be one running back. I think that can be a split backfield. But, that's what I look at with Boise State as what has been the fundamental issue. Everything is about the run game. And when Maddox Madsen had success last year, it was because you went to show a handoff to Ashton Jeanty, you suck up the linebackers, and now you create windows in behind. And it's a lot of those, NFL pro style concepts where it's, hey, we're just going play action. It's just cross and post. And you just read, where's the window? Where's the safety? Easy. When more has to occur, that's when I think Boise State gets into trouble.
Talking to Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football, crossover edition with Locked On Sunbelt, App State, going to Boise State. And so it'll be interesting to see if if App State can just do that, because a lot of teams are doing that with already banged up quarterbacks. Cajuns don't have their starting quarterback. App State may not have their starting quarterback. Troy for Goose Crowder got hurt. So everyone is going to play the run and see if you can pass it over them. In fact, I still challenge Auburn to go after Jackson Arnold because he's really good at sitting in the pocket if you give him time, which I think most quarterbacks are, to be honest with you. But if you get a little pressure on him, that's a problem. And so I think a lot of defensive coordinators play to not lose the game compared to playing to win the game. They don't think college players can repeatedly go down the field for 10 plays. They think there's going to be a sack, penalty, drop ball, whatever the case may be. Whereas I want to force the issue and see. I don't want to dink you, dink and Duncan. A lot of these quarterbacks, 65% completion percentage. But if you put them under pressure, they're not Tom Brady, which no one would think they would be, but they don't handle the blitz all that well just yet. And that's what you're kind of telling me with Boise State's quarterback, has he?
I've never heard it put like that. That it reminds me of how I play ping pong. Actually, my brother will tell you this. My strategy in ping pong is to be the human wall. And so my brother, who's always been a very good ping pong player, and of course we played our entire lives growing up, he has
Is this a little tap back and forth ping pong, or is there competitive slam?
No, this is, I mean, we're not like full on, competitive playing in tournaments ping pong, but for casual ping pong players, he and I are as good as you're going to find most places. So he, has the ability, because we both played tennis when we were little kids, to, really rip a forehand and utilize his spin and all that sort of stuff. But, he could really rip a forehand and get it across. And I would kind of wear him out mentally, because he'd go to the trouble of hitting that ball just right, ripping it across, and I just stand there, boop.
Right.
Boop. And that's kind of what you described, and I think that's an interesting way of looking at it, and I'd be interested to pick the brain of a defensive coordinator, which I'm definitely going to do at Southern Utah at some point in the season, and say, do you ever think that way? Do you ever just make those guys go down and execute? And, the well-run offenses with talented players can certainly do that. But there is an element of how many things can go wrong for an offense on a given play. A kid could drop it. A throw could be late. You could just get pressure with one of your 4 pass rushers up there, which is, of course, every defensive coordinator's dream. So, for Boise State, I think it's more than that. I think if you just give Maddox Matson the easy stuff, that actually is where he excels. I think it's pushing the ball down the field consistently or making tight window throws where his lack of arm strength can come back and get him.
So you can play actually tight defense with maybe not bringing any pressure, so that brings a whole kind of different defense into it. All right, when we come back, Spencer will ask me about App State. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll flip the script. Spencer will ask me about App State. Can they bounce back? And how will the Mountaineers fare on the road, playing in what will surely be a very raucous crowd? We'll do that right after I tell you about Mazda and DoorDash. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athlete sweats, all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. And DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let me break it down. We're going with the obvious. Colton Joseph from ODU. Colton was spectacular against Virginia Tech. 16 out of 22. 276 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, ran for 63 yards on 8 carries, had 1 more touchdown on the ground, leading the Monarchs to a 45-26 victory over Virginia Tech. When the pressure was on, Colton came through. No hesitation, no delay. If you've been watching week after week, this performance is not a fluke. Colton Joseph is on a streak. And just like Colton Joseph delivered for Old Dominion, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's get back to it. Turning to Locked On College Football host Spencer McLaughlin, he asks me how App State's going to fare on the road. Welcome back to a crossover edition of Locked On Sunbelt and Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin talking Boise State. They are hosting the App State Mountaineers. They have Air Force, whereas App State is off the week before they play Boise State.
Yeah, so a question that I've got about the Mountaineers going into this game, David. How have they been on the road? Because no matter how Boise has started the season, there's still a long way to go. You're not going to see empty seats there in front of the blue turf. You are going to have a raucous, rowdy fan base that knows how to show up, that knows how to make noise. Your assessment of App State's ability to play on the road in a true road environment.
They've played in 3 ball games so far, and they've played in 3 different locations. They opened the season up against Charlotte in Charlotte. They did play Lindenwood at home, and they went to Southern Miss to play their most recent ball game. Now they lost to Southern Miss in the most painful way you can, Spencer. They moved up and down the field all first half. A.J. Swann didn't throw one interception, didn't throw two interceptions. He threw three interceptions into the end zone. Maybe one was just before the end zone, but that running back was wide open. It should have been an easy touchdown. So I'm not sure if that has to do with the fans. Sometimes you can't tell with these pictures, when the pictures were taken, it looked like Southern Miss was half full, which is a little bit disappointing because they expected to win the ball game, and you would like to see a little bit more support there. But they were 1-11 last year, so maybe people are like trying to say, we need to prove it. And then A.J. Swann got banged up on the last interception, went down with a banged up lower leg injury. It looked like he had ice on either his knee or his calf. I thought it was more of a case of interception-itis. We're going to take out the guy who threw three interceptions in the end zone. Can't keep on doing that and win a football game. So they did play very well against Charlotte in Charlotte. Charlotte may be them and Virginia Tech may be the two worst FBS teams in the country. They're just not very good. So it's tough to tell. They didn't play particularly well against Lindenwood because they threw a bunch of turnovers. And same thing happened to Southern Miss. Game got away because the backup quarterback had difficulties moving the ball, and Southern Miss played very well in the second half. But in the first half, you could even just take field goals, Spencer, and just take 9 points and take the pick six because it was off the running back's hands because ball was thrown out too far out in front of him. Take that off the board, and you got a different ball game. But that's not the way it went. So I'm not sure. It's very interesting. They've played 3 games, only one at home and one neutral and one road game. So they did not play particularly well on the road. I'm not sure how much the crowd played into the issues because, again, they had 275 yards of offense in the first half, but they threw 3 interceptions.
Yeah, another question that's going to be essential for the Mountaineers in this one is the run defense. And Boise State has had a tale of 2 games. So, it's week 1. You can't draw sweeping conclusions there. And an FCS opponent, I don't think you can draw sweeping conclusions there. So jury's still out, I'd say, on this Boise State run game. Against Eastern Washington, they go for 328 yards running the ball. So as a team this year, they're averaging 225 yards per game rushing. And that's a great number when you just look at it. But then you go, well, you had a big game against an FCS opponent. Maddox Madsen had, over 300 yards passing, but you're going up against Eastern Washington, which is not the same program that it used to be in the Big Sky, which is a really, really tough league, and they've been near the top of it at times. But in recent years, they've fallen down a little bit from where they were. How does App State match up against Boise State on the road in the trenches to take away the running attack? Because if you let Riley and Gaines get going as running backs for Boise State, that's just going to make your life really, really difficult.
Well, so far, their rush defense has been very, very good. I think they give up like 76 yards to Charlotte, and I know it's FCS Lindenwood, but you give up -1 yard rushing. Obviously, that's going to help out the stats because App State may be top 10 in rushing defense in the country. And even against Southern Miss, I think they give up like 110 yards. And so they're very good at rush defense for the opposing clubs. Again, I don't care what level you're playing at. You give up -1 yard, that's impressive. And even in that ball game, they kept on turning the ball over. So I think Lindenwood had time of possession because A.J. Swann and company couldn't hang on to the football. But they didn't give up much to Charlotte. And despite being behind, and you think Southern Miss trying to run out the clock, they still didn't give up more than, I think it was less than 4 yards a carry against Southern Miss. So they are very good at the rush defense. Rush defense against Southern Miss, it was 4.4 yards, 25 carries, 110 yards. That's still pretty good when you're playing most of the game from behind.
When you look at this Appalachian State secondary, top guy they're going to have to contend with is Chris Marshall, who's 6'5" on the outside, former blue chip prospect coming out of high school and has been Maddox Madsen's number 1 go-to guy. But another thing to look for in this Boise State offense, David, the tight ends. They use them very well in this offense. And again, it all comes back to the rushing attack for Boise, because if they are able to run the football effectively, their play action pass game gets dangerous, and that's when Matt Lauder gets involved, or any number of tight ends. I feel like they use 3 or 4 in a game in various spots. Louder's just the leading receiving tight end so far this year. How do you feel like Appalachian State matches up coverage-wise against the Broncos' really big-bodied go-to targets?
Well, that may have to do with how the offense does, because the defense was on the field most of that second half. Again, they threw 3 interceptions. Only 1 got points, and that was a pick 6. So despite getting 3 interceptions in the first half, Southern Miss only had 20 points. So, or 17 points. They didn't rack up a lot of points because they couldn't move the ball against App State's defense. Now, when the backup quarterback came in and you're not doing anything offensively on a regular basis, they did get 1 touchdown and actually recovered an onside kick, but Southern Miss made them punt right after that. Southern Miss's defense is pretty good. And again, the competition hasn't been great. All right. Charlotte isn't very good. Lindenwood is FCS. And Southern Miss has improved, right? But they were 1-11 last year. But that's been the toughest opponent by far, has been Southern Miss. And Southern Miss took advantage of all the mistakes that App State created or caused for themselves, and Southern Miss created. So they are good defensively, but that's only going to last so long if you're not moving the football forward. And they did not move it much in the second half at all, and the defense got tired. And again, Southern Miss really dominated in the second half compared to the first half, where it was just all App State mistakes.
Not moving the ball forward a ton. Feel good about the run defense. Kind of sounds like you like the under of whatever point total Vegas puts out for this game.
Well, it could be. We'll see. Again, they're off. We'll see how serious A.J. Swann's leg injury was. I mean, he had a wrap on it. Again, whether it was knee or his calf, I don't remember off the top of my head. He was getting an MRI on Monday. Again, it could have been more of the case of interception-itis than a serious leg injury, right? We're just going to take him out and let him sit here for a little bit because he had a bunch of interceptions the week before against Lindenwood, or else they would have won that ball game by much more than 20-13. They had like 500 yards of offense, but scored a total of, 20 points. So they can't turn the ball over, and maybe they are going to take a different game plan if it is not A.J. Swann, who's got all the talent in the world. They still put up 475 yards of offense, but not nearly enough points when he left. So if App State's not turning the ball over, they're tough to beat. But A.J. Swann, Spencer, looks like he hasn't played football in a year, because you know what? He hadn't played football in a year, right? He was the Vandy starting quarterback before some guy named Pavia came there. So he went to LSU and he sat for a year. And his first game against Charlotte, much better in the second half, but even some of his completions were in the wrong spot, and he's going to get a receiver hurt. And then turnovers have plagued him the last couple of ball games. App State definitely hopes he's back because he gives them the best shot to win. So it would be interesting because you're going to have the rush offense versus Boise State versus the air attack of App State. App State's coach, Dowell Loggins, first-time head coach. He was Sellers' quarterback coach at South Carolina last year. So he knows how to run an offense. We'll see what happens in Boise State, but it'll be fun to be in front of a big crowd. That's for sure. They're used to playing big crowds at home.
Yeah.
They sell out.
Great fans. Great fans.
Yeah. Just to let you know, it's lovely Boone, North Carolina, officially is the name of the town that they're in. And for a town that's got about 25,000.
That's the full name, Lovely Boone?
Lovely, well, not a fit. That's my name for it.
Okay, okay.
It's Boone, North Carolina.
All right, that's what I thought. I didn't know if it had been added to be named after somebody named Lovely or something. I don't know.
Because it's so picturesque, it is Lovely Boone, North Carolina. But they're used to playing in front of 40,000 fans, but they're usually App State fans.
Yeah, well, I think of the questions I asked you, if App State answers 2 out of those 3 in the affirmative, I think they can absolutely go win the game, because we'll learn more about Boise this week when they take on Air Force, because Air Force, always a solid program, and Boise's got to go on the road for that one. So if they're, that's a physical team. Air Force is always under Coach Calhoun a physical team.
Are they still running option? What kind of offense do they run?
Air Force is always running the triple option. You kidding me?
So that's a whole thing, but that's a whole mess now, right? You got to plan that for 1 week.
Yeah, no, it is. It is definitely not like what they're going to see against Appalachian State. That will be a stark contrast. Like, their pass defense will not be They won't have seen a passing offense like App State since South Florida by the time they play, because it will have been Air Force in Eastern Washington. So that will definitely be an adjustment for Boise State defensively, who love to blitz. They blitz a lot. They run a lot of twists, a lot of stunts up front. If App State doesn't have a game plan for that, that would be malpractice by the offensive line coach. But yeah, I think I'll have a better idea of how good Boise is or isn't based on how they play against Air Force.
So we could have a top 10 rushing defense versus a top 10 passing defense based on the opponent and how they play in the offense that they're playing against.
That is entirely feasible.
That would be amazing if we did that. All right. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up. We'll give our predictions between App State and Boise State right after this. Let's take one more time out. We'll come back and give our predictions. Who's going to win this football game in about 10 days? We'll do that right after I tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our crossover edition with Locked On College Football, Spencer McLaughlin. We give our predictions on App State versus Boise State. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, along with Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Football, crossover edition, App State and Boise State. Can App State bounce back? And does Boise State still get the sour taste out of their mouth looking for a win over Air Force before they host App State? They must do they have like a 90% winning percentage at home? You mentioned the home field advantage.
Oh, I don't have it off the top of my head.
Come in there in Boise and win.
It's not often. It's a challenging thing to do. I mean, you had UNLV go there, and that was a darn good UNLV team. And UNLV lost to Boise twice last year, once at home and once on the road in the Mountain West Championship game. And I don't quite understand. I guess I don't know. I don't get why the Mountain West can't find a good neutral site to play. But anyway, so the advantage Boise has at home is very real. You know, if it were in November, I think it'd be even greater because you have the weather playing more of a factor. That it'd be a heck of a lot colder. But I think it's actually pretty nice in Boise this time of year. So yeah, they're tough to knock off on their home turf. You know, they had some really good teams roll through last season. But you know, as we've discussed, this is a different looking, different feeling Boise State team. So I think you still have to respect the home field advantage while also acknowledging, despite the quarterback and the head coach and several of the players being the same, this is not Boise State of last year. I can say that with confidence. I just don't know quite what they are this season. You know, they were the overwhelming group of 5 favorite entering the year to make the playoff. They were obviously overvalued in that regard, and can they still get there? I know their coach and quarterback are good enough. It's the rest of the team. It's can everybody else get it together? I was as surprised as anything with the turnovers that the defense for Boise State against South Florida just got torched. Absolutely torched. It was a good Boise defense last year. Usually is. I imagine at home they'll be pretty motivated. For my score prediction in this game, David, I'm going to take Boise to win without having seen a spread. I think this has the opportunity to be a competitive game, but I think pretty low scoring. So I'll go 24-17. I think Boise State wins.
All right, so I'm going to give you 2 scores. All right, if A.J. Swann plays, it's going to be 28-17 App State. If A.J. Swann does not play, it'll be 21-17 Boise State. He's going to be the difference in the game. He brings
starting quarterbacks tend to matter.
He brings too much offense to their game. They may just try to run the ball if they don't have A.J. Swann a little bit.
I think
more.
if A.J. Swann does play and Appalachian State wants to win, they have to hold Boise under. I'll go 150 yards rushing.
See, I think they can do that.
If they can do that, they can go into Boise, win the game, and really send the Broncos into a spiral.
Oddly enough, without A.J. Swann, they probably won't be able to do that because they'll be on the field all day.
Yeah. But for the App State defense, I think that's the number. If you let Boise get around 200 yards,
well,
you're playing right into their hand. It's always easier said than done. It's a very simple key, but just slow down the rushing attack, and then the play action isn't as lethal. The passing game, you get in obvious spots, you get them behind the chains. That's just not how Boise's built. But when Boise plays on schedule, they're very hard. Do you know volleyball at all, David?
A little bit, sure.
You know the term being in system?
I do not.
All right. It's an attacking term basically that, describes a volleyball attacking sequence that looks the way you draw it up in your head. It's just there's a pass, there's a set, and it's right to somebody for a clean kill on the other side. That's being in system, in flow. Offensively, in football, I think you'd refer to it as staying on schedule. That's what Boise has to be, in their system and on schedule. When they get behind the chains, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 7, these are not situations where they are designed to thrive. Watch for Chris Marshall on crossing routes on 3rd and 7. That's their go-to. But Boise wants to get you into 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2. And if they do that, they're really tough to beat.
All right, so first time ever, we've talked ping pong on Locked On Sunbelt and volleyball on Locked On Sunbelt.
We got it all. We got it all.
Right.
I might be locked on college football, but hey, I got all the sports covered.
We haven't talked about the Brown stuff over here. We could do that. We could do a whole episode of that. All right, I got plenty of beverages to talk about. These guys know that. I got the shirt on right here. All right.
Awesome. That's awesome.
He's Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On College Football. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on. And enjoy the football.
Yeah, great to talk to you, David.